Hey everyone, I'm Kim, the mom boss behind EmeryandK. Welcome back to my channel. For today's tutorial, we are going to be making this really adorable Christmas plaid tumbler using printed vinyl and mica powder. Let's get to it. So as always, we're going to go ahead and start with our fully prepped and painted tumbler. Today I am using a 24-ounce Plump from Magnolia, and this is the prepped one, so I don't have to do any prepping. So we're going to go ahead and mix up some epoxy, and we are going to add in two different mica powders. So this one is cherry ice. It has a red sparkle to it. And then my favorite one, which is ultra white. This one is just the most pure, beautiful white sparkle. So you'll notice I'm adding a little bit more mica powder than I typically would because I don't have any like glitter or vinyl or anything on this cup. It's just plain white, and I really want to have a strong like mica sparkle. I want it to kind of look like the cup is covered in glitter, but we're taking an easy way out and we're just using some micas. So I'm going to mix that into my epoxy. I'm going to check that sparkle, make sure I have enough. Like I said, I really want a heavy sparkle from these mica powders on this tumbler. So I'm going to get this to where I like it, and then I'm going to go ahead and apply it to my cup. I will torch it for bubbles and then let it spin, and once it's cured up, we will move on to adding our vinyl. The vinyl I'm going to be using today is from the glitter guy. It is called Christmas Snacks, and this is in the mini size, I guess you would say. So when you purchase a vinyl, you can choose regular or mini. This one's mini. It just means that the pattern is smaller, which I thought worked better with this plaid template. So I got a plaid template from Ellies Crafty Co, and immediately I knew I wanted to do something really fun and unique using printed vinyl. So I took that template, I uploaded it to my Cricut design space. I sized it appropriately for my 24-ounce Plump tumbler. You get all the measurements when you purchase your templates. And I went ahead and cut it on my Cricut. I just used the printable vinyl setting, and you see me here. I'm just kind of trimming around my template. So I did this as opposed to using scissors first, just so that I could have those straight pieces to set aside and use for something else. And so now I'm going to go in with my scissors and just trim around the rest of my printed vinyl. If your scrapbook cutter has a better blade on it, then you probably could just go ahead and trim directly around your template, but mine does not, and it tends sometimes to pull on my vinyl, so I didn't want to mess it up, so I just took the extra step. With our template all trimmed up, we're going to go ahead and grab our tumbler, and we're going to wrap our vinyl around our tumbler. Now remember, we have our coat of epoxy on here with our two mica powders mixed in. So for me, when I wrap tumblers, I prefer to use these little sewing clips. I always use my vinyl squeegee to push my vinyl or my tacky tape or whatever onto my tumbler. It just helps me eliminate little bubbles and wrinkles and all those things. So I'm going to grab my transfer tape, and I'm just going to trim two pieces, and I'm going to put them over my vinyl. I'm going to lay them on nice and smooth. Now you will see as I'm wrapping this cup, or after I finished wrapping it, that I have a gap between the edges of my template, and that is because I made a mistake and I cut my template to the size of the tumbler, but it was without epoxy on it. So what I should have done was epoxied my cup and then measured it and cut my template for that, because obviously with a coat of epoxy on your tumbler, it's a little bit bigger. But don't worry, we're going to put a decal over it, so if you make the same mistake I do, nobody's going to see it. Don't fret, don't worry, because I wrapped my cup and then realized my mistake. But we are going to make it work, because this was way too much work to weed to start over from the beginning. So go ahead and get your transfer tape on there, and then we will wrap our cup. Make sure that you push your vinyl really well onto your transfer tape. I use my vinyl squeegee. I do the front and the back just so that it's on the transfer tape really well and I don't have to fight with it as I'm wrapping my cup. So I wrap this around my cup. The backing is still on. This is just kind of to line it up. This is where I realized that I made the measuring mistake, but like I said, we're just gonna go with it. We're gonna make it work. So I like to line it up. Ideally, my seams would match if I had measured when I should have, but I hold it in place with those two little sewing clips on there. I'm just double checking, making sure that everything is nice and straight, especially where this is a plaid and you've got those vertical and horizontal stripes in your pattern. You really want to make sure that you get it on nice and straight. You can see my toddler's hand there. She's playing my vinyl squeegee because she likes to help. So I'm going to go ahead and roll back a little bit of my backing. You can see I had a little stripe there that I somehow got stuck to my hand as I was weeding, and I'm going to hand place it when I'm done. But if that happens to you, it's super simple to just put back. So I'm going to take my little vinyl squeegee and I'm going to push down that exposed vinyl. I'm going to remove my sewing clips, unwrap my vinyl. Make sure you don't have any like little glitter or pieces of dust or anything in your workspace so that you don't get bumps under your vinyl. And I'm just going to slowly pull back that backing, and I'm going to use my vinyl squeegee to push my decal onto my cup as I go. You want to just go nice and slow with this to make sure that you're not pulling on those stripes and tearing them, because that would be a pain to have to fix. So as we go around the cup, you will see I do end up with this like little funky like wrinkle in one of my squares, and I could not fix it. I'm not sure why, but I will show you guys how to fix that if it happens to you also, and nobody will notice. So don't stress too much about it. Like, it's so hard to wrap a tumbler, and especially with this design, it's a little bit more intricate, but just trust the process and keep going. That spot's right here, and I'm like, oh, I can pull it up to fix it, but then I forgot about all the little stripes, so I couldn't do that. So I just laid it as flat as I could. I end up with a little wrinkle in that left square where my thumb is, but like I said, I'll show you guys how to fix that, so don't worry about it if it happens to you as well. And here there's like a pause in my movement because I'm contemplating my life decisions and what I'm gonna do, but I'm committed and I'm just gonna keep working through it. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the rest of this process. I'm just going to continue to wrap my tumbler until my template's all the way around. You can see here that I am lifting up the transfer tape from where I began my tumbler, just so that I don't lay my end over that transfer tape, because that's just a whole mess that you don't want to have to get into. So once I remove my transfer tape, I'm just going to use my weeding tool. I'm going to go through and look for any little bubbles, any little tiny wrinkles, or anything like that that needs to be fixed. And now we're going to go back and we're going to tackle this little square with the wrinkle in it. So fixing this is super simple. I'm going to grab my X-Acto knife here, and I'm just going to carefully slice along one side of that little wrinkle here, and then I'm going to carefully use my weeding tool, and I'm going to pull up where I just trimmed that wrinkle, and then I'm going to use my vinyl squeegee and just lay it flat. You can see my toddler's hand there. She's playing with some clay pieces, always trying to be a helper. So there we go. That wrinkle is fixed. Once you get epoxy on there, nobody's even going to notice it. So don't stress if it happens to you. Easy fix. Once we've got that little wrinkle fixed, we're going to move on to doing pinstripes. So I cut pinstripes out of a red vinyl I had that matched the red in the vinyl, and then a white. And so for my red ones, I just made a square in Cricut Design Space, and I sized it 0.10 by, I think I did 9.5, so it's longer than I need, but I'm just going to wrap it around the bottom and then trim it up once we're done with our pinstripes. I always just feel like extra is easier. I'm not sure why. So I'm going to start by putting my red pinstripes vertically down my squares. And so of course I have sped this up because this process is a little bit tedious. It takes a little bit of time. I think altogether the pinstriping took me about a half an hour. So not horrible, but it does take a little bit of time, but the end results are so worth it. So we're going to go through with our red pinstripes, and then we're going to follow the red, and we're going to layer white pinstripes on top of those. So we're going to finish our vertical ones first. So my white pinstripes, I did the same thing. I made a square in Cricut Design Space, but that time for them I did 0.05 by 9.5. So the white ones are super skinny. My biggest tip with those is just to take your time and be really careful that you're not pulling on them, because where they're so thin, they're pretty fragile and they can kind of get warped. But just take your time, put on a TV show or some music that you like, and this goes by quick, I promise. Once I have all my vertical red and white pinstripes on, I'm going to move on to doing horizontal. So I did the same width for those pinstripes. The length I just made a little bit longer. The red ones or the white ones, I can't remember which, you'll see. I ended up, my machine cut them weird. I had to cut out extras, and a few of them are a little too short because I didn't have enough vinyl. So I just made sure to put the ends of my vertical pinstripes on the seam where my printed vinyl met when I wrapped my tumbler, because I already knew where I had that gap. That's where my decal is going to go, so that section is going to be covered up. So that's where I'm going to put the seams for my pinstripes as well. So I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up. You'll kind of be able to see it. I'll put on some music and then I'll see you on the other side. Okay, now that our pinstripes are finished, we're going to go ahead and do 2 coats of epoxy over all of our vinyl to make sure our cup gets nice and smooth, and then we will be ready to apply our decal. So I chose this one. It says Season's Greetings. I just found it in Cricut Design Space. Lately, I have really been utilizing the images in Cricut Design Space. There are a ton of makers in there who add different SVGs and decals and all that into Cricut Design Space, and with the Cricut Access, you get most of those for free. Some people charge like 99 cents, but majority of them are free, so I chose this one. You can choose whatever decal you want. If you're trying to cover up the seam like I am, you want to be strategic and choose one that's long, so it'll kind of go the length of your cup. So I'm just going to place that right over my seam. I didn't measure this because I just used the edge of my stripe to line up the edge of my decal, and so I used the same red vinyl that I used for my pinstripes for my offset. You guys know I love to offset my decals, so I did a 0.05 offset. And then for the top layer of my decal, I'm just using white. So I did place the little like twinkly stars in this decal by themselves, and then I will go in and place the words. Once I have my decal on, I will finish my tumbler with 2 more coats of epoxy and it will be finished. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this tutorial helpful, maybe a little bit inspirational. If you did, I would love a thumbs up on my video. If you want to see more tutorials in the future, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I do plan to continue to upload a new tutorial every single week. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.